Howdy, folks. I hope you're well. So, this is the first live Racing Pigeon International podcast. And today we're talking about one-off races. If you were running one, or if you were entering one, let's go with running one for now. What would you do differently to what already happens? How would you deal with some of the issues that are around one-off races? So let's assume this one-off race has got over 1,500 pigeons. What would you do differently? How would you organize the birds? How would you train the pigeons? How would you try and prevent unhealthy pigeons developing within the loft? What would you do if it was you? How would you train the pigeons? Personally, I believe that the bigger the crowd of pigeons being let up is a bigger target. My personal opinion is until the first money races, they should be trained one or two crates at a time, and they should be a lesser target for birds of prey. Personally, that's my opinion, that as long as people know they're being individually trained, then it doesn't matter. The training on benzing, as long as you know your pigeons may be being released late, it doesn't matter. You can see your pigeons back, and the time they come in is irrelevant. Obviously, from hotspot races, they all need to be let up at the same time. What would you do if you were running a one-off race? How would you prevent health issues? Ultimately, with that many pigeons coming in from different sources, you're going to have problems. How would you treat that? How would you do that? How would you organize pigeons coming in in only certain batches over certain times, so you can section off the pigeons in different batches? What would you do? How would you feed them? And what would you change about what you may see one-off races doing at the moment? And if you were to run one, how would you run it? These are the questions that I'm asking. So obviously, this is the first live podcast I'm doing. The Racing International, Racing Pigeon International podcasts are going to be pre-recorded. Occasionally, I'm going to do some lives. And so the way of answering this, if you're watching this or listening to it on the podcast, is to basically comment on social media. Wherever you see this, you can place a comment as to how you would do things differently. But please let me know, what would you do if you had a one-off race with 1,500 pigeons or more? How would you organize things? What would you do things differently? How would you keep the health of the pigeons in order? How would you train them? How would you feed them? What else would you do differently? So that's the first question. I would love to get feedback on it, and it would be good to hear from as many people as possible. And the second thing is just generally talking about this podcast. Like I said, for those of you who don't know, podcasts are a massive thing. One of the big benefits and differences with podcasts is that they get syndicated all around the world over all different platforms. So if you're a Spotify user, you can go and tune into this podcast. If you're if you're on Amazon, you can go and get it. If you're on Apple Music, you can get it through the podcast app, and loads of other places, even on TuneIn Radio, which is an internet radio app. So if you've got a phone, or you've got a smart speaker, or you've got a computer, you will be able to get access to this Racing Pigeon International podcast pretty much wherever, one, you live in the world, and two, whatever device you've got, whether it be mobile, tablet, computer, even smart speaker. If you've got a smart speaker, you can say, play the Racing Pigeon International podcast, and it will just start playing episodes. And that's why we're doing the podcast. To my best of my knowledge, there's no other Racing Pigeon related podcast out there. So to listen to the podcast, you can do it on all of the channels that I've just said. And if you want to watch the podcast, Most of the podcasts will be video based, so they'll be recorded as video. The audio will go out onto the podcast channels, and the videos will also be there. If you want to watch the podcast, because most of the podcast platforms are audio only, which is fine. You can listen to it. A lot of people don't want to watch me on video or won't want to watch the guest, but they can have it while they're listening on the phone or they're doing whatever they're doing to listen to it. But if you do want to watch it, all of the podcast video episodes, and everyone will be a video as well. Even if we happen to do any audio recording, you'll still be able to watch it on YouTube. So you will be able to go to the Racing Pigeon International YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/c/Racing Pigeon International. And you will be able to see all of the videos of the podcast that we do on that channel as well. So yeah, we've got some good guests planned. I'm going to be pre-recording an interview for the podcast. Like I said, most of them are going to be pre-recorded. Occasionally I will do a live podcast like this one, but many of them are going to be pre-recorded. It makes it a lot easier for me, so I don't have to be there at specific times doing shows at specific times and stuff like I used to do. I think I was one of the pioneers of Racing Pigeon live shows. Many people have gone and done it now, which is great. Good luck to people that have seen what it's about and doing. But podcast wise, they will be pre-recorded. I'm interviewing the former CEO of the RPRA, Ian Evans, next week. I'm looking forward to that. And I've got quite a few other guests planned. If you yourself watching this would like to be a guest, it's open to anybody to be a guest. If you would like to be a guest, or you would like to see anybody specifically be a guest and be interviewed, then please let me know. mark@racingpidioninternational.com. You can email me, or you can hit me up on Facebook at facebook.com/Mark Lyford or facebook.com/Racing Pigeon International. So there you go. I'm looking forward to it. I'm going to be putting up, I already put a couple of archived footage of interviews that I've done before on the podcast to get it going. I put up the interview, which is still my favorite interview ever to date, with Brian May, Mr. Eyesign, who sadly has passed away now, but I interviewed him about Eyesign and pigeons in 2019. I put that up there. I put up my trip to the Langfan show in China as well, which I did in 2019. I put that up there, and I got a few more archive podcasts going up over the next 24, 48 hours. And then from next week, we will have brand new podcast content. If you want to subscribe to the podcast, that's one of the great things about podcasts. If you can subscribe, so you will automatically get the updates as a new one comes out. It will show up on your phone, show up on your computer when a new one comes out. You don't have to go and look for it. That's one of the great things about podcasts. So if you want to subscribe, you can just go to podcast.racingpidioninternational.com. Go there and you can subscribe to it, and you can get the instant updates as we launch new podcasts. So thanks very much for watching. Like I said, give me your thoughts on, if you were running a one-off race, what you would do. If you were entering one-off races, what you would like to see be done differently. And we've got one live comment here as well. Set realistic expectations. When you quarantine birds, I would quarantine them over a period of 4 weeks in different batches. Thank you, Manxa Racing Loft, for that. So let us know what you would do with one-off races. Go and subscribe to the Racing Pigeon International podcast at podcast.com/racingpidioninternational.com. You can see it here scrolling by. And I look forward to joining me on this new podcast that we're going to be doing. Thanks very much for watching. Thanks very much for listening. Catch you soon.